Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and extra chonky sanguinary guard to that 6+++ show. I am your host, Tom. I am back once again with the 6++ team, a bunch of bang average nerds from all over the middle of the UK, here to talk all things Warhammer 40,000 with you tonight. And we're going to be chatting about the best armies in Pariah Nexus. And there's actually a lot of them because the game's in a great state, which we will opine on many a time over the next hour or two, I'm sure. But I've picked 10. We've got 10. We're going to rattle through them, talk about the ins and outs, why we think they're doing well, what interesting things we can learn about the state of the game from their various successes as well. And then we're going to do a little discussion on fatigue and burnout at the end because we've all been burned out. So we've got useful lessons, useful thoughts and lessons on that and managing that in the hobby. So hope everybody's well. Do let us know if you're tuning in. Let us know what you're up to. Are you building a model? Are you just sat rapturously waiting for the best possible commentary and knowledge you could ask for? Very curious to hear. And we've got some exciting Plus news as well. We can't give it all away today, but we're going to start alluding to some stuff for you. Before we do any of that, I'm going to introduce my cast of players. I'm going to start where I like to start with my dear leader, Chris. Chris, how are you?
I think you all need to prepare your world's smallest violin because I'm coming to the end of my 6 weeks holiday.
Oh no!
I know, and I feel really sad. Yeah, it's when you've had a whole 5 weeks off, it's rough, guys. It's rough.
It actually is.
It is rough.
For me, I hit a point where I am off so much of the time that I can never work now, and it's tough. Yes. It's actually very tough. I know your pain. Yeah. And have you done any hobbying, Chris?
Oh, well, I have. I have spent some money, and I've been building some little plastic figures, some Lord of the Rings plastic figures, the Mighty Men of Gondor.
Yes.
We've got a new chat in the group where a few of us are very excited about Lord of the Rings. And I've been building up the models and got to Faramir today and just wouldn't go well, couldn't quite get the bits together. So I did what any responsible adult would do, which is went and asked my dad to do it. He's also failed, which doesn't really ever happen. So we're now thinking it's my fault. I stuck the first 2 parts wrong.
Right.
So maybe there won't ever be a Faramir in my Gondor force. Who knows? But
we'll sort you out. We'll sort you out.
We'll sort it.
Yeah, he'll be okay. He'll be okay. And my understanding is that much like in the films, Boromir's the one you want anyway.
Absolutely. Faramir is apparently trash at the moment.
Yeah.
Coming out is a thing. But,
I'm completely indifferent about Gondor, but I love the Rangers. I think the Ranger models are really cool.
I like the Fountain Court Guard as well.
Yeah. Oh, those are really cool. Yeah, those are very cool. Are you going to run Denethor?
Well, we'll see. He's quite a cool model. You can do the OSL on the flame and stuff.
Yeah. It's quite a fun one. Oh, John's got a Boromir there, I think.
A Boromir and a mounted Boromir.
Flag.
This is a 40k show. We're not going to let it get too out of hand. But
for now,
suffice to say, we're getting ready. When the new Middle Earth game comes out, we are going to be ready. I have built some Galadrim, and that's very exciting. Those are very nice models. And I've been going through the angst of, do you put a shield? Who has a shield? Do you put a shield on this guy? Do you put a shield on this guy? It wants you to put the shields on the spears, but you're like, it feels like the spears are the ones that don't need the shields because they're going to be standing behind. So I don't know.
Yeah, they're
just poking. Yeah. So I don't know. I'll work it out. But very, very excited to get stuck into that. It's going to be really fun. I am also joined tonight. He's already been piping up. It's the lovely John, my sensei. Scrivo, how are you doing?
I've been on a journey.
Oh.
So I went up
there
to
and back again.
World. Yeah, almost. Yeah, I was wandering, but I was not lost. Went to Warhammer World on Saturday. That was quite weird. I saw Ed. I then
the Ed
Fawcett
from the Close Order
podcast.
Yeah.
Go and check out Close Order podcast. Get that in your ears if you like old world.
I was returning a shoebox of codexes to him because we're no longer going to be doing...
from all those codex you cracked together over the years.
It was quite emotional.
A box of broken codexes, that is emotional.
Yeah. And then I went to something called PeachyCon on Sunday,
which
was
nice.
Really fun.
So
I saw a man try to offer me his Peachy ring repeatedly. Turns out there are like a sweet that are just like a ring-shaped thing that are peach-flavoured. But
that's a relief.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quite unusual. But yeah, so I got to meet the man, the myth, the legend, Mr.
Did you cast
Chris
it into
Peach.
the fire?
No, I didn't. I cast it into, worse, my mouth. And I met him, and he was a lovely chap. And
Good.
I
I'm glad you met him as well.
I played Shatterpoint, more importantly.
Shatterpoint.
That game
this is
people
all
have
too
owned
much.
for a long time.
Yep.
Me,
Not anymore.
I got them
I've
out.
sold mine.
Oh, I'm actually going to get them painted. That's the goal now, because I played it, and mechanically, it's
Is
a
it good?
superb game. So.
I've been clearing my house, and I have found some Star Wars Legion whilst I'm doing that. And there's a degree of guilt because I've never gone anywhere near it. I basically painted Count Dooku and then called it a day. But maybe I'll try when I get home. We've also got the true Archon, the original, the OG, the actual Drukhari player in my team. It is the lovely Rob. Rob, how are you doing?
Oh yeah, good. Yeah. You're not going to let that go now, are you?
I've caused myself psychic damage,
so
I'm now going to be trying to make it up to you for the rest of my life. So
excellent.
She might feel broke immediately.
That's how that typically works. And also, I just need to lay the groundwork for when you finish higher at both Hellstorm and LGT and smash me on rankings as well. So. And yeah, are you doing much hobbying? Have you got anything on the pipeline?
I've cleaned my hobby space, which took a good afternoon because there was absolute shit everywhere. There was an explosion of paints and stuff.
Your shelves look sick behind you. They're very cool.
Cheers. So I did that, and I built some Dark Reapers, which were in little baggies, so I wouldn't lose pieces. Basically, I was expecting to lose pieces, so I got them built up. So we'll get them painted up. I've got a hankering for playing some different factions. So.
I understand.
Yeah,
I understand.
So
we were talking about it. We've done a lot of sky splintering over the last few months. It does begin to get a little bit tiring.
Yeah. 200 points of a list turns out not that
Yeah. We'll see. We're both going to Hellstorm and Drukhari, so we'll let you know how we go up there. There's a lot more Necrons than I like. I don't love it.
Way too many Catan.
A lot of Catan. I was promised that the Catan were gone, but they are not. And unfortunately, that is sad. But we'll see how we get on.
So you're playing
they're quite happy going to damage 2 melee.
Yeah, they really like us, so we'll see. I'm going to shout out the chat, and then we're going to launch into a few little bits of Plus news, and then we'll get into our main topic, guys. So, there's 1 million people in. Swissley's in. He's painting 3 monsters for this weekend's event at Hellstorm. That's awesome. Martin Dorr is in. Lovely to have you in, Martin Dorr. I hope you enjoyed Cardiff. Looking forward to hearing how that all went. Paul Bridge, my Danish superstar, the best Paul Bridge there is in and painting some Grey Knights after listening to Chris's great Grey Knights series. Yes. Yes, I am the hammer. That's what we're about. Wonderful, very good that Chris has some Grey Knight acolytes.
I'm still trying to convert him to paladins with side cannons. He's pussied out and gone for incinerators. I'm very disappointed in you.
I like the paladins, but I just think they look neat. I don't know if they're the best. I just think they're very cool looking. How many side cannons do you get in a paladin squad?
6.
That is a lot of side cannon.
Well, it's 4 plus 1 with the banner, and then 1 for your brother captain. So it's 18 shots. If you have brother captain, 18 shots sustained, 18 hits because it's hitting on 2s. Strength 8 minus 1, 2 damage. Right?
Yeah, my venoms are actively crying at the thought.
Yeah, like Paul's worried about the -1 and not ignoring cover, right? But still, even if you've got through like lots of, you just chew through so many things, right?
Yeah,
so,
and as an Overwatch threat, they'll often be vulnerable.
They're good,
to that.
and
it's a legit Overwatch threat. Yeah, for like marine bodies.
I also think 6 incinerators is going to do work as well. So, Paul, I look forward to hearing about how you killed loads of stuff with incinerators.
We've got Sam Dunn in who says, "Evening lads, going to be listening to your dulcet tones whilst I clean my hobby room." Yes, very much the attitude we're here for. What I like to do is stop cleaning it and then do some additional hobby to pile on the mess. So do contemplate that. That is an option that you have. Gordon Chung is in. Lovely to have you here, Gordy. And there's coffee discussion. Don't have coffee at this time. That was my mistake yesterday, and today has been a struggle. And Swissy thinks Rob Kimpton would love a bit of World Eaters. I don't think he would.
No.
I don't think he would. You've got to give stuff Rob to do his Mind Palace with.
I need lots of little shitty units that I don't.
Yeah, trash. Trash is essential, right?
So Imperial Agents for Rob then.
Yes, Imperial Agents. We actually need to get Scion. That was something we were going to do. Get Scion to talk Imperial Agents. So I think that's going to have to get on the list of things for next week. Wonderful. Sandra says by the end of the show I'll be painting. It's good to have those kind of goals. I respect that. Decaf coffee. Thank goodness for that, Martin.
Ugh.
Very, very relieved. Thank you very much, everybody. Do keep piping up. It's lovely to have you all nattering away in here. So, Plus news. What's new with the Plus, Chris? Is there anything we can tantalizingly tease or talk about?
I don't know how much detail to go into. Let's just say that tomorrow we're going to be releasing a video which is about 10 seconds long, which will be very exciting.
Yes.
Is that enough?
We're going to do a lot of alluding going forwards, like so much alluding. Is illusion a word? That's an interesting question that I don't have an answer to.
It's definitely not, because we don't know what we're doing.
But there will be some alluding to some stuff, what we have planned. It's exciting. It's going to be next year at some point. That's all you get now. The rest will follow.
PlusCon with Plus.
There'll be Plus rings, absolutely, for John to get his mouth around.
What about it being a plus ring?
Jack types in the chat talking about trash units.
I'll go away, Jack.
I love trash. Trash is the best way to play. If I can't throw units away with reckless abandon, I have a sad time. So that's the main thing on that score. And then content, obviously, we had a slow couple of weeks because me and John got punched in the face by WTC and had a great time. But we're now basically alive again. So you can expect the rollout of videos. We did have Matchup go out on how to beat Drukhari. If you've been struggling beating Drukhari, go listen to Jack and Rob take you through that. And yeah, I think then we've got some other bits and bobs trickling out. There was another Combat 101 went out. Ed's doing that whole series, and we're going to be getting back on with the Fight Nights and the Bat Reps and a whole bunch of other exciting things and some members-only stuff coming out. So eyes peeled, not eyes tuned. What do you tune? Stay tuned. Ears peeled. Don't peel ears. Unless you're a Drukhari player, then you can.
Knife ears.
Knife ears is fine.
Are you okay, Tom?
I'm really tired, actually. Maybe the burnout is not yet over.
It's only just beginning.
Good news is I'm now going to handle the stat check meta dashboard because we're going into our main segment. Brace yourselves. Hold on to your butts. It is the stat check meta dashboard, which if you like to have a fatalistic, deterministic sense of how every game you're going to play is supposed to go and use this as often as you can because it's actually an incredible piece. It's got all sorts of data on it. I highly recommend it. You can find it at stat-check.com/the-meta. You'll know StatCheck. They're good. They talk a lot. They're better at Warhammer than we are. But they also compile an awful lot of data. And what we're going to do today is I've picked out 10 armies that I think, for various reasons, are among the very best in the Pariah Nexus meta, have been performing very well. We're going to briefly talk around their stats. I don't want to go too much into it because like the win rate in particular, we've got pinned the win rate results coming soon. So I'm not going to be yelling out the specifics today. Damn. But we will talk around it. And what we will do is cast some aspersions as to why we think those armies are doing well. Before we go into it, I think it's fair to say Pariah Nexus Meta has got an awful lot going on and is actually quite difficult to analyse right now. I don't know how you guys feel. What would you say? Is it looking a bit wild and wonderful out there?
Well, if you think early on, people say, Blood Angels, and they're like dipping off. We can see that
they did dip off, yes.
Sisters are perfectly average unless you've got like a top tier player using them, and that's always been a big thing, hasn't it?
Yes.
It's a huge issue with just stats in general is that some armies have a large player base, and unless you're a very good player, they're actually quite an average army. But certain armies, when played to their fullest capacity, are the best armies, right?
Yes.
But so it becomes a very very tricky thing to kind of analyze unless you really dig into the data.
Yes.
And I think it's quite nice that you can go to a tournament and be like, I'm playing Sisters, no, and actually, even though they've got this idea that they're one of the best armies in the game, actually you can still win like convincingly because maybe they're just a normal level player, and there isn't really potentially an army that is carrying player skill at the moment.
Yeah.
I lost to someone who's worse than me because their army's so ridiculous. That doesn't seem to really be the case at the moment.
No, not at all. I wouldn't say so. I think you're right. I think we don't have any army in the game where it's so broken that I think fairly lower level players are carried by that, right? That we're really not dealing with that. I think probably the last lists that were bordering on that type went away in the last slate. And I think that's really exciting. We do still have some really powerful lists, but what's nice is actually we'll do this as we talk through the armies. The types of armies that are doing well are very different. There's a lot of different types of builds and approaches to the game that are succeeding, and they're succeeding in different ways. And that actually keeps it really interesting and just means it gets back to that very healthy, well, who do you hit on what mission with what army? That's going to have a big say. It's not a case of, oh, I've drawn X army, I'm screwed, there's nothing I can do about it. And that's really, really enjoyable. So let's start picking through the 10 that I picked out. We can do some honourable mentions at the end. And if you think we're wrong, shout at us. Tell us that we're wrong. Maybe even leave us a comment. And whilst you're doing that, do please hit like and subscribe and all those nice things on our channel. We'll be doing some more promotion after this before we talk about how burned up, out and fed up we are with all of this. So on my dashboard, the first one I've picked out is a little old army called Drukhari. Boo! Boo! So a little while ago, all the major content creators did their tier lists, and one brave man called Rob Kimpton predicted that Drukhari would be S tier, and everybody laughed at him. And he was right, and literally everybody else was wrong, because Drukhari have had a really good time of late. And not to go into it too much, but they have a very, very healthy win rate. Not in the crazy broken, but definitely in the very good. They have a very high overrep, which obviously is a stat check term for how sort of far up in the high places they are, proportionate to how many players they have. So there's a lot of Drukhari players going high at events, me and Rob among them, wahey. And they have a lot of 4-0 runs, which puts them in a winning position to win the tournament. And they also have a ton of event wins across that time. So in Pariah 1.0, they have 8 event wins. That's loads. So they have been performing extremely well. What do we make of this, guys? Why have Drukhari ended up fulfilling all of Rob's hopes and dreams?
Well, bullshit, aren't they? I mean, just played into Jack tight on them. Right, what's the point? Like, unwinnable games. I said it was all fair.
Grey Knights into Elves.
I said it was all fair, but it's clearly not. They do lots of things that make good Warhammer. Well, they just play good Warhammer, don't they? They're really fast. They got good combat. Got some decent shooting.
Yeah.
They got tricks. They're not durable, but it doesn't matter if your opponent's dead. Well, and they're also scoring their cards. So
yeah. They love the Pariah missions and scoring as well. I think that's very relevant.
And a lot of units as well.
Yes.
The unit count is a big thing to me.
Yeah, I think my assessment of Pariah so far is that armies that have a lot of stuff that is both disposable and effective and can go and be doing battle, but also just tick off the jobs wherever you need them, those armies are having a great time. Yeah. And Drukhari is probably one of the quickest of those in terms of how it approaches it. It really likes the game. I think a lot of what hunts Drukhari has been repeatedly hit on the head with the nerf bat, right? Like your artillery in particular. And I think Craftworld Eldar being on the down really, really helps. Sam Dunn says they love those horseshit new ruins. You mean those fucking wonderful, magical, brilliant, genius new ruins for clever people on UKTC? Yeah, they absolutely love them. You can deploy an obscene Drukhari army all over it in a way that's like, you cannot hit me and I will kill you if you try and play the game. So they do love that. They've dropped off a tiny bit because they had pivot adjusted. Pivot was a bit nuts. And they have actually their stats have been a little bit downed by them losing 2 inches off the movement on the Raiders. And I know for a fact I was doing some frankly outrageous things with the full move Raiders, and I am sad that I can't anymore.
Not even
sorry, let me just play this little violin
about.
Yeah, I think it was Liam Warswick at an event I was at, had his Von Ryan's Leapers tucked in on like his safe side, and I was just like, woo! And then it just came around and just jumped out, bodied the unit. It was beautiful. But that is no longer as possible as it was. So I think that's fine. That's fair.
I think people are playing them now as well. Before, like, I'd turn up and I'd have to go through what everything in my army did, and people aren't asking as many questions because they've played them a few times now. Yeah. So people are starting to understand them.
Yeah, I think so, and I think they're one of those funny armies. I had this conversation with Mark Cromwell today because he plays Hypercrypt Necrons, and he's like, I don't mind them. It's like, you wouldn't, because you can reach them and hit them and get them in the places you want. Yeah. For any army that can't engage with them sort of against the pattern of play that they want, and it's usually the teleporting or 3-inch deep strike armies or the artillery that can do it best, they feel really just to actually lay a glove on, right?
Yeah,
I'm a bit concerned.
It's horrible playing an honest army against them.
Yeah, it's nasty. I'm a bit concerned for them. I think they may have flown too close to the sun. We'll see what the consequences are. And one interesting fact from the stats is people barely play the Real Space Raiders detachment, but it has a way better win rate than Sky Splinter, whilst being boring as hell. So make of that what you will. Maybe we'll see more of it.
Does that mean boring
no
players?
No more. I had a year of it.
Sam Dunn says no. You just don't appreciate the absolute brilliance of hiding behind a wall and being essentially uninteractable.
It's because he's a Tau player, Tom. That's the answer there.
Oh dear. Zito says, yeah, played Rob the other night. Fantastic opponent to play against, but horrible army to play against as Death Guard. Yeah, exactly. And that's a great example, right? That's a matchup where Death Guard's capacity to deal with them has been trimmed away as crawlers have got more expensive and less efficient. All of these things have really hurt their ability to actually hurt Drukhari. And what you realise is that all of these things exist in a very fine balance. As much as we bitch and moan about artillery and planes and whatever else, as soon as you take those things away, there are certain armies, and Drukhari are prime among them, who really benefit. You cannot have everything that you want. That is not how it works. So I'll take Drukhari being good.
No.
Next up, it is, and maybe we'll put timestamps here. Maybe we won't. I don't know. Next up, it is. Chris in the face said, "Will I fuck?"
All right.
Next up, it is the Thousand Suns, spooky wizards, an army I've never been able to play effectively for any sustained period of time, and they have a great win rate. Again, a little bit over where we like armies to be. They have a reasonable over it, a little bit too good, not as strong as Drukhari, but very reasonable. They have a lot of tournaments in winning positions. They are making it to the final placings at events an awful lot. And they have a solid 6 event wins as well. And their player population is bigger than Drukhari. Well, Drukhari, it's worth saying, are having the sort of elite elf thing where they're not actually played by that many people, which has a slightly nudgy effect on the play rate. They're not that common an army, but T-Suns are slightly more common and are also posting very, very solid results. What do we think of T-Suns at the moment in the current game?
Again, they punish honest armies, don't they? They
hugely.
They do their things. They kill things where they want to, and then they hide. And just through range damage instead.
Yeah, they are one of those armies that can just break the rules, right? And break them in phenomenal ways. They've got in Magnus arguably the best unit in the game. Is there a unit that's better than Magnus in terms of what it can do? I don't think so. What do you boys think?
He fits the role for the army so well, doesn't he? And he also therefore adds you that extra element of secret missions.
Yes, I think that's a big one.
Which is really nice.
So they're one of the winners from that, aren't they? Because Magnus popping up at the end of the game on your opponent's objective, they can kind of now deliberately go behind, let a primarily develop, because one of the things they hate to do is give away their key assets too early, and then they can roll you and take all the places later and make up that score. So they're very, very tricksy. They have just taken another nerf through the Wizard torrent going away. Gordy is celebrating its departure in the chat. Yeah, fair enough. I understand. Mike Rive, welcome by the way, Mike Rive, who is in the chat, and says they're the most broken faction at the moment. What do you think, John?
They're quite battle line kind of reliant as well.
They got the rubrics, don't they?
On certain Pariah missions, kind of they've got the benefit on top of that as well.
Yeah. I actually think if WTC hadn't happened, they would have better stats than they do. I think because of the timing, all the best thousands of players were not actually playing the big events in this era, and they are still well up there for win rate and outcomes. And that's with most of the best players in the world not playing them because they're actively preparing them for WTC. So I think their stats maybe slightly undersell them. There were not as many people playing Drukhari for WTC. If anything, the Drukhari players were making hay whilst all those armies were out the way and they could just do their thing at home. I know I was. So yeah, they're very, very powerful. They break a lot of the rules. They have so much mortal wound damage output. They can get around things like Overwatch with double move and everything else. And they've actually got several archetypes now as a result of Mutalith Vortex Beasts being apparently the real deal. So yeah, I mean, I think I'll be interested. Do you think they'll be able to hold up now that the indirect has changed?
Don't see why not.
Yeah, they're going to have to adjust their builds because they have to be more direct, aren't they? If they're going to actually pick up opponents, they have to be a bit more aggressive.
It feels like there's more risk involved to actually get your damage through. And I guess a good T-Suns player, and I wouldn't know because I'm not one, does not expose too much stuff and will pick their way around the board like that and use Magnus very carefully, etc., etc.
So maybe their representation will shrink a little bit just because people are going, oh, it's a little harder now.
I think quite possibly. I think probably other armies might have people's attention, and they are really tough to play. Like it's quite mentally taxing.
Migraine material.
It really is. So I think that actually keeps them down a little bit, if anything. Just that's not for the faint-hearted. So we'll see how Thousand Sons get on. So next up, in number 3, it is the Sisters of Battle.
Oh.
Sisters of Battle. Who's played against Sisters lately? How did you find that? Let us know. So they've got another win rate that's a little bit on the naughty step. The last one, these 3 are the only ones that are in the sort of the problematic places. They have a very solid overrep, second healthiest in the game. They have excellent placings for winning events, similar to T-Suns. And they are on 9 event wins with a bigger player population than Thousand Sons and Drukhari. So 9 event wins is a hell of a lot. That is the most in Pariah at this moment in time, according to the StatCheck meta dashboard. So Sisters of Battle. Broken nonsense, right?
I spent a good solid 8 hours in the car with some guy called Jack Tight.
Oh yeah.
On the way to Cardiff and back, and obviously he did quite well last week. He
yeah, he did.
Won some Leeds Super Major or something with them, and kind of his point of view is that if you take them in their best build and you play them well, then they are unbelievably strong and they've got a lot of good matchups. But like at our event, there were 2 sisters. The sisters player won, Stephen Box. And then 2 other sisters players were there, went like 1 and 4 and 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And I played into one of them, and it was very much like you have to get it right. You still have to get it right. Yes, their output is there, and they're a very combo intensive army. But if you get it wrong, at the end of the day, they are still T3 bodies, and
it's basically a bunch of rhinos and some T3 bodies, right? As far as defense goes, and that is not tough.
No. Yeah, you really have to have your forward planning down with the sisters, because if you just play for that turn, it's not going to work, is it? Yeah.
And their dice, the miracle dice, like what the hell?
Yeah.
Eldari player.
All right, fate dice boy. Yeah.
I can only use like once, like in a blue moon these days. But I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this, and it's it's on every unit. I forgot about that. I think they look fun. And obviously, like just being we all know, as someone Martin said in the chat, like as soon as you get to manipulate dice and you are reducing. And it was like my experience, right? I haven't played Elder for so long, I never failed any charges because I was like, it's a 5-inch charge.
Yeah.
Just use a 4 fate dice. And as soon as I started playing like a bit of World Eaters or playing the Grey Knights and failing my 4-inch charge with a double 1, being like, what is this bullshit?
It's completely incredible.
It completely changes how the game kind of works, and being able to control so many elements, is just smooths over everything, doesn't it? So it's a very good mechanic.
My understanding is that Sisters players aren't that chuffed with the builds that are the best right now, and as much as it's all in shooting, really, like Bringers of Flame is like here tanks and Melter and Flamers, right? And Jack had to literally come and become the best Drukhari player out of boredom, which was tough for him. But I think there's probably scope for an internal rebalance with Sisters. I'd love to see Penitent Host brought up a little bit. I think it's incredible. I really enjoy it, but it's obviously not the same level of power.
We do have Aiden in the chat there. And
I know, Aiden Brocklehurst.
Win an event or gets the final table with Penitent Host?
It wouldn't surprise me. Yes, I believe he did. Aiden's a very good Sisters player. He says they're entirely reasonable. You can always trust the person who plays the faction to give you the download on a faction's strength. Those are the guys you trust. Swissy says, would Rob K play Sisters? Rob would be incredible on Sisters.
I would not play them because they're Drukhari in power armor, and I would play a different
That's exactly why you should play them.
I think that's what's interesting about them as an army. Until you get into the nitty gritty of how they are actually playing, on the surface, if you play into them, they do play like Drukhari do.
But they're elves, right? They're elves, and they've got transports, they've got trash, they can get to the midboard and do all the scoring in the new missions, and they've just got a lot of stuff and a lot of damage. So they're similar in that sense. Thousand Sons are quite different to the other 2, really. Thousand Sons have this one big guy carrying the army. These are much more about going wide and jamming stuff.
And as an army, like Drukhari, they're quite expensive to actually build that collection up. Whilst Thousand Sons
there's actually not that many that even have Sisters, right?
They take forever to paint as well.
Yeah,
they do. I took one look at them and gave up immediately. Chris Kinnair was mentally broken just bringing his to WTC. Aiden wants combat Sisters back. I think hopefully the book will see a sort of Necron style whack-a-mole evolution when new things pop up as they take out some of the top stuff. But again, what's reassuring is that none of the data on any of these armies is so alarming that you're like, we must castrate them. They just need nudging around, really.
Yeah.
Speaking of castration, it is the Blood Angels next. Going for the Blood Angels in number 4. So these were tipped to be the thing, the be-all and end-all. And they started off pretty well, but actually their data has trailed off a little bit. They are... Let's have a look. Let's get that up. So they have got a win rate that is slipping down into fine, but is still very good. Over-rep is a lot less than the other ones we've been looking at so far. Tournaments in winning positions is much less too. About half that of Sisters. They have only won 6 events, but that's still a very healthy amount. And they've got a very decent play rate as well. So Blood Angels on the down. Why do we think that is? They're obviously still very powerful. Why have we not quite seen them hit the heights we might have anticipated?
I think they're a bit mappable. They are very fast, but they are mappable and you can get reps into them.
Yeah.
And you can also tech very easily. You can put 2 fight first units in, fight on death units, and it suddenly mitigates a lot of what they think is guaranteed.
Yes.
3 up save, 2 wounds, most of the bodies.
Yeah. They are very fragile, and if armies connect into them again, not on their terms, a bit like Drukhari, but I'd say possibly worse than Drukhari. They don't have transports to protect most of their stuff. Yeah. They can just get massacred, right? And they are one of those armies that lives and dies on its connections and its go turns and what it manages to achieve.
I think at the beginning of Pariah as well, there was a recalibration of options for a Marines player.
Yeah.
So if they were already leaning into Blood Angels out of almost necessity for how they wanted to play, they suddenly were given more choice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so that might be why we're seeing less.
Yeah, well, as I say, there's 2 more Marines factions coming right up, so there's just more stuff going on in Marines land now. So I wonder if that's taken the attention and the focus of some top players away as well.
That's the feel for me,
which has a knock-on impact on the stats. Martin Furnival in the chat, welcome Martin, lovely to have you here, says also noticeably Citizens each have the best flamers, so Overwatch can wreck many armies. Yeah, that's a really valid point. Yeah. They both have great Overwatch control. I mean, the stuff you can do with Seraphim is just bonkers, right? They're absolutely crazy. They make me cry. They absolutely make me cry. And yeah, so Blood Angels may be a little on the down, but a couple of other young pups are on the up, and one of those is Space Wolves. Space Wolves, our very own Paul James's favourite army, are
recently
sitting tight right at the top of the Goldilocks zone win rate, looking very healthy there actually, and they have fairly limited over solid tournaments in winning position, but they are bridesmaiding a little bit. They're not making it all the way all the time, but they're a very consistent 4-1 army at the moment, and they have won some events. They've won 4 events. And a much smaller player population at 3%. And they've evolved a bit. It's not just Wolf Jail now. It's Champions of Rust as well. So they've diversified. What do you think of that?
I think it's exciting because you're seeing different builds, different compositions of those builds using units that I hadn't seen the index rules for. So like Bjorn the Fell-Handed, suddenly knowing what he does, I was like,
he's pretty good, right?
Using that was pretty cool.
Pretty good. Yeah, I think Champions of Rust is an incredible detachment as well. Like over the game, it ramps up to being so dangerous. They are pretty honest, Space Wolves. It's not like it's not trickery and bullshit like some of the armies we've talked about. But Wolf Jail seems to have been a little bit on the down. Whether that's as Sam Dunn is alluding to, he's bored of Wolf Jail. So I know Paul James just wanted to play Champions of Rust because he thought it looked more fun, basically.
Yeah, maybe that's the thing as well. Like once you've played couple of months of an army that does one thing and does it one thing well, if you get the kind of the front foot, you get bored of it.
100%.
Maybe people are just going and trying other things just because of that as well.
Yeah, completely. But that's one of the success stories of this slate, right? Because that got a little balance pass. They tweaked a few things in Champions of Rust, nudged some points around, and they are back at it and they have thrived. You know, they've had a really good time. So they're definitely up and amongst it, which is very exciting. And their win rate was actually a little bit more apocalyptic before Pariah happened.
Gosh.
So it's good. It's good that's come down and settled.
I do wonder if Blood Angels has a big say in that because they're effectively more mobile Wolf Jail.
Yes.
They can go through walls.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the same thing. I think the player base is kind of split, right? Yeah. I actually don't know a ton of like top players who've been really pushing the Space Wolves thing. Obviously, there was a few who took it to WTC. Matt McCurdy's obviously been slaying with it. Paul's obviously done good stuff with it. But I can't think of other names off the top of my head that I've seen really giving it a go, which is kind of interesting. It's not had the same attention, even though it's evidently on stats, it's doing great. One more Marine faction to go.
Oh,
Boo.
Oh, cool.
Boo. And this is the Dark Angels. Now, this is an interesting inclusion because they have improved and they evidently have some strong builds and they've been performing much better in recent weeks, but they are not anything like their brethren at this moment in time. They've obviously, I think people took a little while to figure out how to play this, helped along by John Lennon at WTC. So their win rate is below 50, very chill. Overrep also low. 4-0 event start also low. But they've got a couple of event wins and their player population is up and is about the same as Blood Angels and Space Wolves. So they are on the up. And particularly that list, the Lennon style list, does look very, very effective. I don't know what you guys think. Is that a contender in the meta right now, or is that a false dawn?
I think it's a very high skill ceiling. You can't just send it. You need to know when to send it.
That was exactly what I was saying to Gordy last night about them as well in our chat. I was like, you have to play it like you're not tough. You are tough, but you have to play it like you're not for like half a game.
It's all staging. It's not actually a valid list now. It's 20 points over. So
is it? Interesting.
Get those voidsmen in the bin, guys.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's got some really cool pieces, but if they are picked off by its predators, they just fall down. Like things like the Deathwing Knights, if you drop them in the wrong place, they just die eventually, walking towards stuff. Or the Eradicators, if they don't get a good line and they're out of their transport, they're dead as well because there's still 3-up saves.
Yeah, I think we've seen Ben Jones do well with them in the UK. I think that you evidently can do it, but it's not. So there are eras with Dark Angels where they're so good that it's like they're just everywhere, and people are shoving their Terminators around, and it feels like they're very hard to beat just by default. This is not where they're at right now at all.
And there still is some play in the Inner Circle detachment, and there was an RTT result I saw recently for the Unforgiven detachment. So,
John, where could people hear more about what you could do with Dark Angels?
We do have a show on the channel called the Inner Circle. There's a good few videos, and there'll be one next week.
Woo!
Probably going on about how Unforgiven is playable. Apparently.
Wonderful. So yeah, they've not hit the heights of the other two, but they are creeping up. We're seeing a bit more from them. I think it's going to be interesting to see if that breaks out or if that's a short-lived anomaly. We've got another one that's an interesting one because it is in theory in the doldrums, but actually in some ways it's one of the best armies in the game. That is Chaos Space Marines. Now, Chaos Space Marines took a big old nerf that made me cry because I was looking forward to killing everyone with them. But despite that, they have what we call a real mixed bag of stats going on. Their win rate is one of the lowest in the game. They have a very low overrep. They are not in winning positions very often, but they have won 6 events in Pariah, and they have a big player population, one of the biggest. So Chaos Space Marines having actually, despite the hits, a very, very good time. What are you guys seeing out in the wild? Why do we think that is?
They hit the I think they do well in the mid-board kind of region.
That's right.
And I've played them a few times now, and for my Grey Knights, it's a pretty close matchup.
Yeah.
And it just feels like if they can see you die, and if your opponent tries to go toe-to-toe with them, they'll die.
Yeah.
And you have to have that awareness to be tricksy and play around them and that sort of thing, and not just get obliterated off the face of the earth, which they do have that power to do. So the sort of army that I've certainly felt like you are living a bit on the edge. You can't afford to make a mistake. You can't give them an in, and maybe they struggle there. That's why they're not posting up such big consistent results, because they're not. Because they can just lose, right? Like if the team does just hide and stuff, then they're not that amazing. But when they do get those right matchups, or they're playing into armies that are trying to do the similar thing to them, they just do it better, and that kind of creates that those wins for them.
Because stuff like the Chosen with the Lord going into something like Blood Angels, suddenly Blood Angels are going, uh-oh, we don't like this.
Yeah, they've got transports for Blood Angels. It is a bit build dependent, but they can play into a lot of the other melee armies because they have plenty of good combat. They have some of the best shooting units in the game because pacts are insane, and there's multiple ways to be building rerolls into sustained on Vindicators is obviously absolutely bonkers. And then you can go in a sort of a cursed direction. Yeah, and I think probably my assessment from writing CSM lists is that the points, although the nerfs felt quite brutal, what they've prevented you from doing is ever writing a CM list that just does all of it. They tend to do one thing. They'll be quite gunliney or quite hoardy or quite melee heavy, it's quite hard to have everything you want now. But the detachments let you build in a range of different ways, so you can take those different avenues in different directions. Like having played a bunch of accursed heavy stuff, I'm now playing Veterans of the Long War, where it's all just the standard Marines and it's rhinos and tanks and that kind of stuff, and that works great in a different way. So I think it's actually a book that has a number of different ways you can approach it. And I do think now they're one of those, because they've got a big player base, and because CSM players famously like to just run their here's my random bunch of word bearers units and I'm just going to run them at you and whatever else. I think the win rate always slightly belies how good they are. I've always felt throughout my whole time in the game like their win rate's always coming in a touch lower than is actually fair when you play against someone really on their game with the army. I'm very curious though, because their stats are almost bad enough to be looking at from a improving perspective, but they have a lot of event wins under their belt. So I'm very curious to see if they dare touch that again, or if they leave that be.
Because you'd hope that if they are going to make any changes, that they'd be delicate to help the people at the bottom of the pile, not boost the people at the top of the pile.
Yeah, and see if you can coax some unit diversity out as well. As I say, I think a lot of there's a lot of common units. It's like whether you can get some of the lesser seen stuff out and in play.
Bring back obliterators. Is that what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everyone loves obliterators.
Everyone loves obliterators. I would love those in vets with full rerolls on a target from behind a wall.
Mutilators. We need mutilators back.
Oh, I love those. I converted.
Do they exist anymore?
No, they're gone. They're dead. People were like, they'll do a multi-part obliterators kit with mutilators, and they're like, or they'll just make you pay 50 quid for pre-fit push ones from Shadow Spear forever.
Tycho the Lost.
Lee Churchwood says, make Terminators go again. Yeah, I'd like to see Terminator builds again. I actually like the Terminator builds. They're not terrible. They're just not that great.
It sounds like they're quite well internally balanced when it comes to detachments, which is nice to see.
I think so, yeah. Because I've played games with even the trash Night Lords one, and that's actually not as bad as people say it is. You just have to build it in a slightly different way. So I think almost every detachment in the book has played. Chaos Cult is actually really good, very scary. If you go full accursed and just full cultist carpet, just fill the entire board. That's a genuine problem for a lot of armies. So there's a lot in there. So I think CSM will continue to thrive despite not actually being up there in the stats, which is exciting. Next up, we've got some absolute pansies. It's the Grey Knights. Oh, no one likes Grey Knights. Am I right?
Lads.
Good evening, Kobe in the chat. Lovely to have you here. So, Grey Knights, they have a very solid, very bang average win rate, as befitting our captain.
My style.
Yeah, they have quite a low overrep. They've not been closing out as often in recent times. Their 4-0 event start is no better than CSM. So they're not sort of overrepresented at the top of the game at all now. Pariah has fixed that. They have 3 event wins and a very healthy player population. So they're still trucking. But if anything, it feels like Pariah has maybe brought them down a peg. What do you think, Chris?
I think they're... Put it this way. At my Peterborough Slam event, I technically, if we're playing WTC, went undefeated. Okay? Because I lost 81-80. I won 88-66. I drew 79 all. I won 79-78.
Yep.
And I drew 82 all. The event I recently just went to, my lowest score was 70. I went like 95, 70, 90, that sort of thing. The army just scores well. It's like it just plays Pariah reasonably well. It will nearly always net you 70 points. It will just hold its own. It's not really 100 army unless you're playing the vehicle skews, but then they have some bad matchups. But the problem is all the games are close. And so because all the games are close, it can just go wrong. You can draw bad cards. You can get outplayed. It's just that every game, even games you're reasonably comfortable in, can still be a bit on a knife edge sometimes. They have all the tools, but they don't have that much stuff in all reality. They don't trade well, so if you're playing into those armies that have that ability to trade well, you can kind of struggle. They've got really good tricks, but a lot of the time when you're playing them, someone encounters them the first time. I played with someone at the weekend who was playing them for the first time. It was like, oh, I don't want to go within 9 of you, so I'll just go for 9-inch charges. And well, that's not really the right way, is it? So when you play against people who've played various times into Grey Knights and know that you need to try and put yourself in between 2 units, so if one misses away, you can charge the other and that sort of thing. People are starting to get a bit used to how to play them, and that sort of thing. They did take a very minor points nerf, which actually does end up basically taking an entire unit off the board for you, which obviously has a thing. I think they're in a really interesting place. They're a really fun army still. I mean, the Librarian's been nerfed like 5 times and people are still taking 3 of them. Like there's so many options in that book considering what a small kind of book it is. I could build at least 3 options of what I feel to be good lists coming up. And they're all very different in how they play. They don't have that. Unless you're a really, really top tier player, they can struggle to close out those games and put that definitive blow in and be like, boom, you're now dead. It's more of a just, I'm doing my stuff and it's really close.
You're going to get home by just enough.
Exactly that, which is why I like them, because that's just how I play. But it's not everyone.
And it's fantastic for teams, isn't it? Because they rarely get blown out, like very, very rarely.
But eventually you just draw bad cards, or you get outplayed, or something goes slightly wrong at some point. Like Drago, as usual, fails his 6-inch charge, and you did that in game 3, and you're not going to get into that tournament winning position. It happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's another success of Balance. As much as they were looking like a real problem for a while, and now they're just a very interesting army among others and present a very particular problem. Paul Bridge says you should try the Incinerator Brick. The Incinerator Brick's got a 70% win rate. That's what you heard here. Go and play that. None of these Paladins with Psy Cannons. No. Absolute nonsense. Martin Furnable asks our World Eaters next. So Martin, we do requests, so we can have a look at World Eaters in a minute, because I am literally just reading stuff off a screen and it's super easy. So, but hear me out. There's one more to do first, and that is the Necrons. I thought the Necrons were going away.
We all thought they were.
I really hoped they were going away. I was done with Necrons for a little bit, but they are still holding strong. They are balanced as far as win rate goes. They are holding at 50-something, but not too high. They have a solid over-rep and a very reasonable 4-0 start. A little bit below some of our crazy earlier factions, but actually still very good. And they have managed 3 event wins in this time, which for an army that I think a lot of players have moved off is solid, and they still have a big fat player population at 6%. So Necrons have not gone away. I think WTC was another event that shone a light on the fact they still very much had a lot to give. So actually they're one of the ones, if you're like, what's coming back in the next few weeks, I would suggest Necrons is definitely one. A certain Josh Roberts has had enough of playing CSM and has decided he's back on his Necrons. So he'll be at Hellstorm. So we'll see whether that carries him. But yeah, Necrons not quite as defeatable as you would think. So what do you boys make of that?
They've just been able to shift into a nice little meta spot, haven't they?
Yeah.
What we're seeing at the top tables is lots of 2 damage, and you know what loves 2 damage? Catan with a 4-up invuln and a 5-up shrug.
Exactly that. I know from my own head, I was literally like, I will run re-rolling Vindicators until Catan go away. I thought they'd gone away. I was like, I can have a lovely time on Drukhari now, flying around doing damage too. And now they're back, and I'm like, well, I just die, don't I?
I die away from them.
Touche, Mr. Necron man. I did not have a plan other than hope you weren't around.
and the big proportion of those players are still going into Hypercrypt because it does that thing we like, right? It's the repositioning. Like, you're so flexible with the mission that you go, I just can be wherever I need to be.
Yeah, exactly.
As well as surviving.
So we've seen Hypercrypt, we've seen a little bit of Awakened Dynasty and a little smattering of Obeisance Phalanx as well. There's been actually more experimentation since the Crayons Up the Nose Canoptech Court list went into the grave where it belongs.
Have you seen the Destroyer Cult one as well? Have some good success.
Yeah, there has been. I know local to us, James Marsden has done well with it. So this is quite an exciting book. There's actually a lot you can do. And the power of good codices in this edition is that your opponent can never be ready for all of the options anyway. So you've always got the jump on something, and the detachments actually do very different things. But Hypercrypt, a bit like Grey Knights, is great at playing the edges, taking its time, growing into a game. But it also has the option of just suddenly tabling you if you make a mistake as well, which is something Grey Knights don't have.
It's one of those things you just said, like it's you can't tech the Necrons because I know for Hellstorm I was thinking about it, like, I know Josh is going, I know Mark Crumbleheim's going. I'm like, cool. One of them is going to be running Catan spam, the other one's going to be running Destroyer spam, and if I tech, it's completely different tech for the two of them.
Exactly that. Yeah, that's exactly it. You cannot cover all those bases. So many of the good lists don't even have Catan in, so you can think all the way around dealing with Catan and then not even face them, right?
Yeah.
I've been thinking about monoliths, Tesseract Vaults, and now the list seems to be going for Doomsday Arcs. And you're like, well, that's a completely different thing now, a different problem. So there's a lot going on in Necrons. Actually, a very exciting army. I think they're probably one of the ones. If you're like, what should I start playing now? I think Necrons are definitely up there. A lot of fun.
On my radar, let's put it that way.
And in case people forget, they flipping grow back as well. Like people, I like honestly, you play half a game, you're like, I forgot. You literally, if I don't kill you, you just start growing back, and then I die.
Good.
It's
I played against
bonkers.
2 days ago, and I completely forgot. I was like, cool, I killed that men here. And then it came back closer. I was like, oh, fuck, I forgot it does that.
It's ridiculous because you're very used to making sure you finish the job, and then you're like, oh yeah, no, I literally just lose if I don't. That's bad. Scorpec bricks, when they start growing back, you're like, that's really painful.
So cool.
Some tech from WTC was you can still put Cryptothralls in units, and you can put them in a Wraith brick. So maybe you don't take 18 Wraiths now, but 6 with 2 Cryptothralls is a real pain in the arse in some of these detachments. Really nasty to actually dig out, because it's just that bit too much to ever meaningfully get through for a lot of armies. And again, because people aren't thinking about them, Necrons get teched very aggressively for when they're a real problem. They're not really there now. So actually, I think for a Necron player, this is a better time because you can slide under the radar and sneak around with the Deceiver being a sneaky, sneaky bastard. Yes, they are easy to paint, Martin. That isn't lost on me. It's on Tom's forever list of ever-growing list of armies. Ola asked, did we talk about Dark Angels? We did talk about Dark Angels. John, do you want to give a pot summary of Dark Angels for Ola?
They do the kind of the mission play well. They've got the ability to stage forward and kind of pressure things, like being in those, especially if you're playing on UKTC, being on the kind of those big L's staging kind of as a threat. So people don't want to be on points because you'll just be on there. And then they've got really survivable units like the Deathwing Knights that just, with their anti-vehicle, anti-monster kind of upgrade, just do a thing really well while surviving, which is just
they really do.
Annoying. I love
but
it.
It's not the days of old. Don't shove 30 Terminators out and expect to be alive. It's you got to be a little bit more sneaky.
You've got to respect it.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. So we got a shout out for World Eaters, and actually, World Eaters were on my list of honourable mentions. So we will briefly chat about World Eaters. World Eaters have a very solid win rate, almost as good as Blood Angels. Overrep is not high, but tournaments in winning positions is just as good as Blood Angels as well. 3 event wins, and I can say from writing Goonhammer, they have been bridesmaids a lot as well. They've been up there in podium places all the time of late, doing very, very consistently well. And their player pool is a respectable 5%. So that's nuts. They are as popular over this time as Blood Angels and almost as successful. That is not something I would have predicted going into this meta. I don't know what you guys think.
Angron, baby. You've killed Angron. Cool, he's going to come back and score me a secret mission now. So that's quite good. And, we're also seeing, I was going to mention it earlier, the Drukhari, we're seeing a bit of a situation where boards are becoming denser and denser. We obviously play UKTC, which have just suddenly up-leveled in their density. And guess who likes that? Combat armies. It kind of does make sense that they have the ability to go and do all the stuff. They have enough units to score the cards. They have the ability for the secret mission. I know Anthony Vanilla was doing that a lot at WTC with Angron and that sort of thing. And, there was elements of more of a combat meta at points, and they obviously, they're very good into that. I think they're in a very nice place. Jack and I were talking about it on the car back from Cardiff. We were thinking of maybe breaking them out and giving them a bit of a run at some point.
You should. Absolutely. You've got an army, don't you, somewhere? Yeah.
So how many Forge Fiends, though?
They have snuck in. They're not in all the lists, but Forge Fiends have snuck in lately because sometimes it's just good to deal with some Marines and just good to get some battle shot going as well. I think it's quite nice because that's the effect they have. So I think, World Eaters are in a solid space. Very good at playing the game.
Yeah. Built-in fight on death.
Oh, delicious. I mean, just the buffs you can layer on the army are phenomenal, and you've got every trick and tool you'd want in a combat army, I think, except flying infantry across the board. That would be nice.
Not yet.
Not yet. Oh my word! Don't. I don't need that. I don't need that. Cool. Well, that's it. If there's any other faction you would like shouted out, then do feel free. We can look into the stats. Those were the immediate standouts for me. It's worth mentioning that that actually most armies have won events. In Pariah. Can you guess who haven't?
If I was to guess 2 factions, I'd say maybe GSC and maybe Orcs.
You are correct with Orcs. Orcs have not won one. Orcs are definitely reeling from their nerfs.
Bit of a.
The other one that
beating.
hasn't won an event.
Eldar?
No, it's the perpetual Stumpy Brides. It's Votann. Votann, obviously, actually performing fine, but they never get through a genuinely tricksy army at the top of an event. That was always been my experience. They really, they can get up there, but then you're never going to have enough.
They just can't reach the bouquet.
They just don't have. They don't have the flex in the units and the rules just yet. I'm fingers crossed for a book for Votann.
You can only roll so many 6s on casino cannons, right?
Yeah. So Ola asked about Votann, and Votann's stats are really healthy, like solid win rate. They actually got brought back up by Pariah, which is if you go and listen to the Vanguard Tactics podcast where me and Jake talk about Votann, we were very optimistic on Votann. We felt they were going to be fine, and that's exactly where they've been. But they just do not have the rule set to get through bullshit armies, right? They're just like, I roll up, I try and shoot you, and I waddle around, and armies go, that's cool, but what if I did loads of other stuff?
Because Jaegers help a little bit.
They really do help.
Problem,
yeah,
but then they don't have something like fast-moving infantry. So there's that kind of hole, isn't it? So
yeah. Lee Churchill asks about Moth. Moth is the greatest unkept secret of this edition. When Codex Moth finally drops, the world is going to shudder. But me and Ed have not yet written it, so we don't have any raw data on Moth for you. But we know it's incredibly powerful, and we know it's coming out before Christmas. So get ready for Moth. And then we also had Tyranids, of course. Hello, Bugwatch mains. Let's talk Tyranids. So, Tyranids.
They're shit.
Yeah.
No one should play them.
Tyranids are one of the most played armies in the game. They have managed to scam 2 event wins. They have a very low event win rate. Their overrep is not at all good in any level. And their 4-0 event start is not good either. What's interesting looking at their data is that they're not really any different to Grey Knights now. Grey Knights are pretty much posting the same sorts of numbers.
That is disgusting.
I'm happy that NIDS have managed some event wins. They have been achieving some top placings. I think very good NIDS players can do very impressive things with them. But they just have bad matchups in the game, don't they? They just are still an army that can get put away.
I think it's nice that you check our Discord for the Bugwatch chat, and they're always talking about various different, all of the detachments.
Yes,
that's really prominent. It's
the variety is incredible.
Oh, we all just have to take Invasion Fleet. It's actually there's a big discussion there on, and there's that little adjustments they're making. And would this be better in this detachment or this one? I think that's really nice.
Yeah,
I do like jumping in there, and you jump in 3 weeks between jumping in that Discord, and you're like, it's completely different. They've completely How good must it be?
It's just sluts.
Yeah, oh my God, they're revolving.
I think it was one of the best books of the edition in that sense. It's just exciting. It's got a lot going on. And you can sort of tech away to your heart's content and, work out if you want a Tyrannofex with a spray or a cannon or whatever else it is they get very excited about in that chat. And they are solid. And also, they're not an army. They're not an army you can underestimate. They actually are deceptively dangerous. They have great mission play, and Shadows can swing a game, right? If you're in a tight game, Tyranids can just bamboozle you because they just shock you for one round. And if you do have a bad roll on your leaderships, they can just put you in a headlock that you can't get out of. So they are a lot better now than they were. And I think the buffs that they got were great because they made every single one of those detachments, except Unending Swarm, rest in peace, better. So I think the book is in a much healthier spot now than it was, but it is still ultimately one of the weaker ones overall in the game right now. And then we had a shout out for Custodes, and we've also got Black Templars. Now, Black Templars is about to be a real pain in everyone's arse. At the moment, its stats are bang average. It's 50%. It's got a couple of event wins, and actually, most from covering Goonhammer, the vast majority of Black Templars lists have been mixed arms, Righteous Crusaders with transports, or Gladius Black Templars. But obviously that flipping horde list that Ed likes is probably going to come back now, and then we'll have to see where that sits.
I would say it's just about the best list in the game at the moment.
A lot of people do think it is, yeah. And I'm building lists with lots of Vindicators and Predators and just praying.
30 incubi.
30 incubi. Yeah, let's go. Let's have a college try. Let's give it a go. No reason why not. So Templars are one to watch. I don't think their stats up till now are what we will be seeing in the future. Custodes, where are they? I'd forgotten about them.
You wish.
As someone who played them I played them twice at the weekend. They move around quite slowly and then get to the point, and then if they can't charge you, they die and they lose. They're very killy, but if your opponent doesn't let them get killy, as in doesn't let them into combat, then they just don't have the ability to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they don't have enough assets. They've lost their counter defensive tricks. So although they can do a ton of damage in a game when you're playing give and go matches against a bunch of other armies who have idiots and then they're danger behind, custodians just don't have a way into that without committing and then getting bodied.
The free changes really hurt them. There were Talons builds that were amazing with their mobility, with reactive moves and everything, but that just killed it, unfortunately.
Yeah, so they're not in a good spot. I think they need some love, and I hate custodians on this show, so it must be bad if I'm saying help them out, but I think they do need some help. I think they need to be brought back. I'll be interested to see what they do. Maybe make the bikes really cheap. That would be fun. I'd like to. I'd love to see the custodians bikes out and about. All I want is not just huge walls of infantry, and that being the only way they play. So let's see if they can manage it. They have snagged an event win in this time, and their stats are otherwise really, really not very good. And that's where custodians are at. What else did we have? We've got some incinerator chat. Chris Richardson is accusing the Tyrannid chat of random flailing. I think that's a reasonable assessment of what goes on in that chat. There are a lot of different ways of seeing the game at play, but that's what's so great about it. One of the ones I don't play NIDs. I read that chat for fun because it's just it's just entertaining watching them all arguing about all the different ways you can play Tyranids.
But have you thought about a Tyrannid Prime with wings? And they're all sitting there.
Oh, fantastic.
It's great.
And Ash Loftus says, ironically, best scoring against Olivier's Templars was Sweden's Imperial Knights players. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, a very heavy shooting army is going to be the thing that will put them away.
Apparently, part of that was that the French guy was like, I just played awful. Like, he just came out afterwards when they were being interviewed and was just like, I can't remember exactly what happened, but he was like, I did so many things wrong. I just played appallingly. So that was part of the reason why that game was.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, at least 20.
And he only won the WTC, the idiot. So
yeah, what a loser!
Yeah. What a loser! What a chump!
Yeah.
We'll teach you, Olivier. Come and join us.
Yeah, come join us.
Maybe we get Olivier and Ed on and just have an hour-long conversation about Black Templar Horde on the channel.
It's like, this is why you need 10 units of tactical marines and 3 units of heavy intercessors. And then Olivier's like,
No. Oh, dear. And Kobe's building up a Black Templar says, oh no, here we go. This is starting. Christopher asks, how long are we from the next slate? I would guess the next one could be prior to LGT.
It's going to either be just before LGT
or just after.
LGT.
Yeah, that's the territory we're in for this, and it should just be points. I think, judging by how they've been doing business, I don't think this is going to be a radical one. So it'd be interesting to see what they do. But
Jack
I think
was saying that the last one was actually a bit early, so therefore, if you would think about it being in its normal spot, that would mean the next update would come out after LGT.
Yeah.
And surely GW are fully aware of LGT, so you wouldn't imagine them to 2 weeks before be like, "Hey, good luck, guys."
They were aware of WTC though, and still did it, which is.
Yeah. Maybe there was just maybe that was just Josh Roberts. Like, I don't get to play, so let's just fuck everything up.
Yeah, I think it's going to be touch and go as to whether it impacts LGT or not. I'd quite like a slate before LGT. I think that would be fun because it's always fun to see who can react and how and find new things and new options. David Gaylord's in the chat, says fully aware. There we are. I also wouldn't like a slate because I'd like Drukhari to just be left alone. They've done nothing. They've done nothing to nobody. They're fine. They're okay. Fair and balanced. Let's just have LGT, and then you can take them outside and shoot them if you want. But
20th of June was the data slate, so we're looking at what's that? 2 weeks before
Yeah, it's going to be right there. Like
Yeah,
it could impact it. It could not. It's right on the cusp.
It's literally 2 weeks before.
It could literally, if you're practicing an army now, just know that it could be completely ruined, and then you could have to start again
in like 3 days.
Yeah. Let's start a conversation about staying motivated in 40k. Moving on from that. So thank you very much for being with us thus far. We are, of course, 6 Plus. We are a 40k team of bang average nerds. It's been lovely having so many of you with us tonight. We really appreciate it. Please do hit like and subscribe on the video. Leave us a comment. Did we do any of those armies wrong? Have I missed anything? Is there something that's way better than I said it is? Is there something that's not as good as I said it is? I love being told I'm wrong. I take it really well. So leave me a comment. That would be really fun. If you're interested in supporting this channel more generally, you can sign up and become a YouTube member. We've got a whole bunch of members. We're incredibly grateful to you all. There's little contributions there. And if you are interested in getting some mentoring and coaching from us and learning how to be a bang average 40k player and play the game a little bit better, we can help you out. Get in touch and we can set you up with that as well. Wonderful. Okay, that's it for self-promotion. We are very good at self-promotion, possibly the best, so I had to do it a little bit. We're now going to talk fatigue and burnout in the hobby, because it's summertime, and I always think there's quite a lot of burnout and fatigue in summertime for reasons that we can get into. But I guess I'm curious, guys, what for you does fatigue and burnout in the hobby look like? And what do you think we can do about it? If we start with what this actually feels like and what you guys have had in terms of experiences of fatigue and burnout, what kinds of things have you had to deal with in terms of managing burnout in the hobby?
That's been the main one for me recently.
Like building and painting stuff.
Yeah. Right. I've that classic. We've all been there, haven't we? Oh, I just get this army ready for this event. I'll do the edge highlighting afterwards, and then you play your event, and then you're like, actually, you know what? It looked fine on the tabletop. That's exactly what I've been like in my Grey Knights. I bought some models off of Ed, and it's a mix of silver, my painted models, and some random bright red Grey Knights. And it's just, I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this. But you go to an event and no one comments, and you just go along and you're like, you know what, it's fine. And therefore you lose all that kind of incentive. And I tried painting some during WTC, and I was just like, nope, not for me. And we've all been there when we've got that excitement for a new project, and it's really hard to manifest that, I think. So for me, the issue I found over the last few months is just I haven't been able to manifest that kind of energy. And lethargy, I always like to say, like, lethargy breeds lethargy, right? If you're not doing the thing, if you just can't be bothered, you're not going to get struck by that inspiration. You kind of have to fake it till you make it. You have to just start engaging, doing the thing. And then, hey, maybe something like Lord of the Rings will come on, and then suddenly you're like, now I'm excited to paint Silver Knights, whereas I wasn't excited to paint Silver Knights when it was Warhammer 40k or something. But yeah, like for me, it's been the hobby aspect where I have struggled. But if you can just force yourself, little and often, I guess, it doesn't have to be a 3-hour project, does it? It can just be, I'm watching this TV show. Let's do a little bit of painting at the same time, and a little's better than none.
I think it's similar for me. I think I definitely find the same, and it's gaming's been fine, and getting to events has still been pretty okay. But actually, building and painting new things just hasn't really happened for a few months. How about you guys, John and Rob?
I found that in the summer, when the temperature had risen,
I think the summer genuinely has such an impact, doesn't it?
I found it was uncomfortable to sit in my painting desk.
Yeah,
the wet palette didn't stay wet, so I avoided it. And then I came back from WTC, and I was like, I want to paint, I want to hobby, but I had spent 4 weeks not painting. I suddenly just went, how do I get this rhythm back? And it's that's a real challenge, right? Once you stopped, you kind of like, you're trying to get back on the horse and start or back on the bike and start pedaling, but you're like, I can't. I've forgotten how to.
I think that there's an extent to which there's actually positives in that, right? And that's something in general I always think when you're looking at something that's negative or difficult, it's often because something else is actually good or positive. And in summer, you just have other nice things to do, right? You're out, you're seeing your friends, you get outside a lot more, and actually you don't have that same reserve time. I always find most of my big projects come along in the winter when I'm essentially hibernating and painting a lot more. Like the Votan got moved along massively over wintertime this year. And then I've not really pushed a whole project since. I've not had the time and the inclination once it's got warmer. So I think that's probably a little bit of it, isn't it? And then also, obviously, WTC we just played. We didn't play. We saw far too much Warhammer, didn't we, John? We were just done by the end of that.
Yeah, I'm fed up of watching people play badly.
I came home and I played about 4 games in 2 days, and then I went into a coma, and that was that was the end of it. We've got a great tip from Christopher Richardson in the chat. Not the one about the shock collar. that's the shock collar one is a bad tip. Don't listen to Chris. Don't listen to Chris on that one. That's not the way to live your life. But the second one, Christopher Richardson recommends painting a completely different single model and colours to enjoy painting. And this is 100% what I do.
Palette cleanser, yeah.
And it actually lends itself beautifully to something that we forgot to even tell them we were doing, Chris. Remember that?
Whose job was that? If those fans of the show, like last time I was on, will remember that we randomly came up with the idea of doing a painting competition.
Yeah. And
we actually are doing it. The team have been briefed. Some of them have entered, not all of them. I'm sure they'll pay me their mighty £2 at some point. But we're going to be having a little painting competition as a team, and you, our wonderful viewers, are going to be the ones who get to vote on the winners.
Yes.
We're all choosing an 40k infantry model. I've currently got 3 choices, and I really can't choose between them. So I'm tempted to put a randomized poll up and be like, just randomly choose option 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah, nice.
And not even tell you what the options are. But yeah, it should be fun. I know a few guys have already started working on their models, so you're going to get to find out just how good we are when we're not trying to scrape together an army on Friday night in the last desperate attempt to play 30 Terminators.
You're going to find out that I am no better when I try. So that's exciting. I'm actually really looking forward to it. I've got an idea. I'm going to take it right back to where it all began for mine. So I'm very excited to do that. It's going to be really, really fun. And if you in the chat like the idea of maybe doing a community one of these where we vote on yours, let us know, because I think this is quite a fun concept. I think it'd be really nice to see all of your paintings. So if you like the sound of doing one of that for the 6+ community, pipe up in the Discord, let us know, and pipe up in chat and let us know, because I think we can very easily run one for all of you guys and get to see all your wonderful sort of painting approaches and models as well.
Something I'm really excited about for that is showing off how shit my models look while I'm painting them.
Yeah.
Because you see these things on Instagram. I know when I started out, it was so demotivating seeing these amazing whips that were crisper than anything I would ever finish. And I'm excited to show my models looking in an absolute.
There are some of those, aren't there? Like there's Flamion and Juan Da Vinci or whatever his name is, and Darren Latham and stuff, and they'll be like, "Here's my whip," and it's like, well, it's not really a whip, is it? Because you've done one leg, but it's literally a perfect leg. Or you've done the face fully finished, and the rest is flawless black. Like, it's not a whip, is it? Like Lewis did this. Lewis posted a picture of his purple Sisters of Battle tank as a whip, and it was awful, right? It was just like one coat of purple. It was so patchy and stuff, and
it looked like absolute garbage, Lewis.
And then he kind of finished it, and it was,
and it still did.
It was average, but the marked difference between those two like elements, it's nice to actually share that along, and it takes a bit of balls, right? Because you're being judged. You know you're being judged. You know if you put out this whip and it doesn't look very good, people are going to go, "Oh, that doesn't look very good." Even though they understand it's a whip, and we all know that's what whips look like. You
the tradition is you take that photo, and a split second after you've posted it somewhere, you go, "I've missed a bit there as well."
Yeah.
My one is when I'm like, "Oh, I'm really happy with this," and I take a close-up picture, and the edge highlighting looks like I've done it with a marker pen. And you're like, "Well, when I was here, like 30 centimeters away, that was quite nice." And then on the hideous glare of the photo,
you need glasses, Chris.
It's gone wrong.
Yeah. We've got some people piping up for a painting comp. Chris Rich is up for it. Sam Dunn's in. Gordon Chung is alluding that Abaddon is infantry, which I think is him saying he's going to paint an Abaddon. I assume Jake's stolen your other one, Gordy, so you're going to need one of your own. If you're up for that, do shout out in the chat. I think if we have enough interest, we can definitely do a painting comp. I think that would be really, really fun to do. And then we've got someone new in here I've not seen before, AT6TCG. Lovely to have you here. Just got back into the hobby after 25 years and painting the new Deathwing Dark Angels. My goodness, they are lovely models. John's been showing some photos of his. They are such an upgrade on the old ones. They look really, really cool. Painting them as Angels of Absolution using Grim Dark Stippling Effect with Typhus Corrosion. That's the good stuff. For me, that is what I do, and that's what I will attempt to do in this painting competition. If I can just use technical paints to distract people long enough to get through without them realizing I can't paint, then I might be all right. That's always the way.
Streaking Grime.
Streaking Grime goes as well. Jack Ash's Night Lords with Streaking Grime look really nice. It adds a lot for them in terms of the Grim Dark. So, I mean, I think that's actually a really good back to basics tip for managing burnout, just one small task. And I think in general, I said one of the things we actually haven't talked about. One of the reasons I can get sort of mentally shut out of the game and the hobby is I just feel like I have too many moving parts at once, and then you just draw completely. You're right. Okay, I've said I'm going to do AOS. I've said I'm going to do some Middle Earth. I've said I'm going to play XYZ games this week. And you're just like, your brain just goes, nope, too much, had enough, want to stop. And I do think breaking it back down to component parts and starting up again, sort of like what we've done with the channel the last 2 weeks, sorry about that, is very useful. You just go, okay, simplify it, one commitment at a time, and then as you get your appetite back, you kind of build out again.
That's a good little bit of advice, really. Like I found to get myself back on the wagon,
Mm-hmm.
I'd clean my desk and put the one thing on the desk. Because there's no distractions. Because at the moment, if I look at my desk, I can see 3 or 4 different projects strewn across my desk, which is fine, but it's distracting.
Well, I just get mental block. As soon as that's the case, I just don't finish anything. Yeah.
That's exactly what at the start of the show I was saying I cleaned my desk. It's because I had 700 points of Eldar that I started 3 years ago. And on stage at the time. And I had to get it off my desk because it was just, every time I looked at it, I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, it deflates.
Like that's like so many hours of painting. So I put it away. I finished one model and I'll get it back out when I feel like it, or I commit for a list. But
and that takes it back to doing it for fun and for joy, doesn't it? Which is actually, I think sometimes we can turn this into a massive pressure on ourselves.
Yeah, and that takes up as being a job in your head, doesn't it?
Exactly that. Sam Dunn just has riptides on his desk.
Oh, because they've got to get rid of all those scratch marks from the Eradicators.
Oh, did you twat his riptides? That's mean.
Those are the riptides that I did the Eradicators.
Oh, poor Sam deserves better than that. Yeah, Eradicators are really fun in Dark Angels right now. They're a whale of a time. They're very, very good. Excellent. I mean, any other sort of general tips or worldly advice for fatigue and burnout, guys?
I think when you're talking like tournament results, I think you need to step back and think what you want from an event. I know.
Yes.
Pre-10th, I was going to events, be like, I need to go 4-1. I need to take this up. I need to go 4-1. And then it was really refreshing having Drukhari as absolute fucking rubbish tier because I would rock up and it's changed my mindset of the game. It's like, okay, what can I make work? What can I push myself with? And what can I do that other people aren't doing?
Yes.
Not, I'm going to run the meta list and I'm going to get a good result. It's what can I do with my own thoughts and processes. It's spun my view of the game a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that there's so much joy to be had in that. It's just your mini game to play, isn't it? There's no expectation, there's no concern, and it's actually really nice and healthy to do that. I've definitely been having that with CSM, where I've pissed around with a whole bunch of different builds, and it's just been fun discovering different things and making different things work. And as we've alluded to, the book is actually good, so I'm not going to pretend it's not. But the book had taken a hit. And you're sort of like, there's a temptation there to go, boo, it's rubbish, I don't want to do it. But actually, there's just tons to be found and done. And it's just about making it a fun game for yourself, isn't it?
I think, so casting my mind back to when I was towards the end of 8th edition, and me and the group of guys in my gaming club, it felt like every month we were constantly trying new tournament lists, and we were really like working hard and trying them out every week. And we were like, every game was cutthroat, it was like, oh, you've made a mistake, I've tabled you kind of thing. And that's where we're doing that. And we've been to one event, and the week after, me and Jamie East was like, should we just take some generic Marines? So he took his Blood Angels, I took my Space Wolves, and we just ran in the middle and rolled a bunch of 3s and 4s, and it was actually just like fun. Your stuff didn't just die and you auto lost, and it was just like, combats lasted a while, shooting gradually chipped away, and it was just nice to not have that constant fear of, if I misplace this, it's game over. And I think sometimes that's nice. So many of us, especially those of us who are trying to like score the space points and all that sort of crap, and get into a habit. I know for me, like I barely play anymore. Right, I was talking to my girlfriend about this. The more I get into 40k with the running of the channel and all the editing and all the videos and that, actually the less I play these days. I only actually play at tournaments. Like I might have played with my Grey Knights. I've probably played about 2 practice games in the last 2 months. And it can put a lot of pressure on those. If you are getting to play like really regularly, like just having a bit of a break from it and just trying something a bit different. I know, like, Rob's been doing the Dark Angels and that sort of thing, and that's why like the King of the Ping League's been really great.
It's been so fun.
Many people, because it just gives you a valid reason. Because if I was to go and pick up something that I just feel like having to go, that I just want to have a go with, at the moment it doesn't feel worthwhile. But if I play in this league, for example, then I'm like, actually, there's a reason why I'm doing this, and I think that's quite nice.
100%. Lee Church in the chat says you don't have to play as much as you think to remain competitive. Lee Churchwood certainly doesn't, but I agree. I think you do have to have faith in your general building up of kind of muscle memory and approach. And actually, you're learning all sorts. But actually, it's also very healthy to just not be in the game. I've had a few weeks just not in the game. We've got Hellstorm coming up, and I'm just kind of like, I'll be just sort of figuring out where I'm at with it. Gone with the same list as I've done well with before, so it's like there's not going to be issues there, and we'll just see how we go and not worry about it. I think I'm excited for UKTC season to be over, because I've not really thought about rankings all year, and then you get to the end and you're like, oh, where am I for X, Y, Z, and then it starts getting in your head, and actually that's not fun. It's not really something I like to worry about. So we're nearly there now.
Yeah, King of the Ping was a great thing, because that's really got my interest back in 40k. It's really piqued it against running a stupid Dark Angels Vanguard list, and it's just completely different. And it's like rocking up to where I started at my local Games Workshop on a Friday night with a list and going, let's just play some random, and we both don't really know what we're doing, but it's good fun.
Yeah, 100%. And Micah in the chat says, the group I was playing with was really negative about losing in my performance, so it was toxic. I do think that's actually something that you can consider is, the playing environment and the environment you're in. If that's healthy and well, you're going to enjoy it more. And if there's issues with it that need figuring out, then that in itself can have a knock-on effect, right? And I've definitely had that in play groups I've been in before, where the culture's not been as healthy as it could be and needed some love, or when maybe there's a mismatch of expectations and approaches as well. So you've got to find the right people. And I think that's actually one bit of advice is think through who have you had your favourite games with, and go and play them, because that will be nice.
Drop them a message. Don't do a random pickup game. Drop them a message.
Just curate it. Don't leave it to chance that your one game a week could be some random, and find someone that you have a great game with and go and play them. Like I played Paul James the other week after I got back from WTC. That's just always really fun. As much as I moan about playing against Paul James, I always have a great time. It was really, really fun. So I think that's a really good way of doing it. And if you like playing against fun people, come to our Discord, because there's tons of them playing games all the time in there now. I don't know when that happened. It's become a flipping revolving door of nerds in there. I don't know when that happened, but they're all over the shop. So if you get in there, there's links in the description and whatnot. So if you're not in there already, come and join. You can find nice TTS games against people in there, and we'll run our next TTS league in the winter once this one's wrapped up as well. I think those are all my main tips on burnout, really, and fatigue. I think the other thing is just you can just stop. Don't do it if you don't want to. Go do something else. I think it's very healthy to do something else.
And if you want to play games, it doesn't have to be 40k. If you do fancy just a bit of a break, play one of the other games, meet up with some other friends, and then you actually suddenly do miss it when you've
100%. 100%. So we're going to go into podcast questions now. We only had one, I think, in the Discord. So if you have questions, leave them in here, and we will handle them. And actually, I'm going to field that first one, which is from AT6TCG. That name doesn't roll off the tongue, AT6TCG, just for your awareness. And I have a show called That 6+++ Show, so I should know.
Plus.
And they ask, what's the easiest way to learn the game for someone coming back after so long? I was 14 at the time. Hell yeah, me too. So freestyled the rules with my mate. You actually played. I never played, not at that age. So, guys, what's the sort of quick way of getting back into the game at this stage?
It's a huge thing. Like when my girlfriend's come to an event and I've started trying to like explain a little bit of what's going on, you kind of just realize how much you take for granted.
Yes.
And then even when I've done like the coaching and been playing or coaching people who are still quite new to the game, you realize like there are multiple levels to understanding of the game.
Yeah.
And it's a long process. It's a long process, and I guess I would say the logical thing is start small. Trying to jump. Like I've been playing this game for a very long time now. If I pick up a brand new army and I go straight into a 2,000 point battle, it's just a disaster, right? I mean, I muddle my way through it because I've played enough to be able to. But compare that to someone who doesn't even know like the basics of the rules and all these terminologies and those sorts of things. It makes far more sense to me to be like, well, let's just play 500 points. Let's start to not worry about so many elements of the game. Let's get the basics down.
Yeah.
Then you take the next step, and there's just going to be tiers of that. And as you kind of learn, and I would say from our boot camp, there was a guy who came who was very new, and he said, "I play my army, and he plays his Tau, and we play who can kill each other, and I lose." And because his friend's playing Tau and just shoots him off the board.
Yeah.
And you have to try and kind of get your head around that aspect of like a bit of a mission place. I'm sure there were like narrative scenarios out there and that sort of thing. Which,
I think it's setting expectations. What do you want from the game coming in? Do you want to be a narrative player? Do you want to be a comp player? Do you have certain people you want to play with?
I was going to advise playing the starter sets against each other, but GW released a starter set that is a bunch of little bugs and some guys with flamers this time. this time around. So actually, I don't recommend that. I think. Sorry, you go, John. You go. Yeah.
When I used to show people how to play the game in 8th and 9th edition, it was here's a character, no psychers. Obviously, that's not as impactful now. A couple of infantry units, and then something like a tank or a dreadnought, just to learn what each thing does. So if it's that completely new to you, having just those few bits, I think gives you a foundation. And then you're both learning at the same kind of speed without it being like, I've got 10 units, or even if it's like 500 points, it's still like all the mechanics, all these different styles of things are so different. It's a bit much. Yeah. So you do need to just keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah. I think reach out to your gaming groups. I know my local one, there are a lot of new players that come in and they just go into the group and say, I'm new, can someone play with me? And there's usually two new people and one experienced person who sits there and just chats through the game with them.
You've often had, I think it might have been at Tring Club that John runs, that the first time I went, I just watched someone else play, I think. And and that's often quite a nice way. And I remember when Adam Richardson came to Twisted Dice Club, he just watched us play that time as well. And I think that's a nice way in. And I'd say Lore Vids is awesome. I think what I would say is, whilst you are just excited about the universe and the world, just ride that for as long as you possibly can. Just enjoy that and watch all the fun, fluffy stuff online. Go watch Winters or Tabletop Tactics, all the really fun, really visual, really lovely looking games. And from a learning perspective, you are basically at the start of a long and pointless quest to understand every army in this game, but don't rush it. Start with one. Pick one you like and learn about it, learn its lore, learn its rules, go and read online what it's got and how it works. Watch a few bat reps of that and just start there and build your way up and out from there. And it takes a long way. And Ash Loftus is going on about the psychic phase and needs to
funny man, isn't it? And not to make you panic, Rob, but how are you competitively into moths?
I know. It's already run into me twice.
It's behind you.
It's up there right now.
My goodness.
Moth is huge in the meta right now. There's no getting around it. It's absolutely massive. I actually had to deal with one that was almost the same size as the one that attacked Ed a little while ago. It was horrific. Absolutely horrific. So Codex Moth isn't out yet though, AT6 TCG, so wait on that one. That's not there yet. But yeah, I think build out gradually and just really enjoy that immersion, because that was my favorite thing. And eventually you will be a cold-hearted murderer who only cares about how dangerous the new toys are. And don't rush that journey. Just enjoy all of the nonsense on the way, is my advice. Okay, so we've got some other questions. Chris Richard asked, based on Tom's interview questions and the upcoming comp, what model are you guys most proud of painting? I think we fielded this quite recently. For me, my favourite is Radakar the Beast. It's one of the New Age of Sigmar Soulblight Grave Lords. I really, really like that model. That was probably my favourite that I've painted, I think. And John, what you got there?
So for me, Inquisitor Erasmus. I need
to beautiful, yes.
Because doing glowing swords was fun.
Yeah, really cool. How about you, Chris?
I think I said last time it was a Harlequin that I painted.
Yes.
My first ever Harlequin. I did a flame type scheme which involved like flaming lightning and stuff, and Harlequins are very small, and I did all the checks and stuff, and it came out like it's probably the model I'm most proud of. We have said we'll set up a Discord section just to show off models that we're personally.
If we're going to do painting comp, we'll get that set up. We'll get that set up for you guys this week because it's an appropriate time for it. Rob, what's your favourite model you've ever painted?
I think the one I've just finished, which is a Wave Serpent, and I've done it like a corally colour, and it's got LEDs in it. And I started it 3 years ago, and I finished it last week.
Yeah, very nice, very, very nice. Bring on the Wave Serpent meta. Let's go. When I started playing this game, they were really, really good. Yeah, long time ago.
I remember there was like people were taking like 8 or 9, and it would be the pulse. Wave pulse.
Yeah, you can like do mortal wounds with them.
D3 mortals. D3 mortals.
Yeah.
D3 mortals. So that's fun.
And the characters sitting in the crowd.
Unchargeable. Can't reach me. This game's great, guys. You'll love it. And yeah, Sam asked where you jump into the game hugely depends on how much reading you're willing to do before you do. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Like I'm a voracious reader when I'm focused on something. So for me, I just ate up rules and lore and everything else. I think going gently and also going with audio as well as visual is really nice. Like just listen to people talking about the I've been doing that with Mordor and Lothlorien for Middle Earth because I was just like, I don't know this game. I'm just going to listen to people talk about it and start getting a sense of how it all fits together, rather than just reading purely as well. And Paul Bridges expresses some frustration at keeping up with the rules. The release rate of rules now is bonkers. Like it is very quick, but I think that's where locking in on one faction and one codex is probably a good start point because the codex and its basic relationship to the core rules is going to stay broadly the same, and you can start from there.
If you know your army well, you've done 80% of the job.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Okay, and then I think in our main chat we had. I think there's only the one. Let's have a look. So we've got.
There's a few, I think.
It's gone. Yeah, there's a few. So. Funk asks, 1, what are the best current armies in 40k? And 2, how do I manage fatigue/burnout in the hobby?
He's a funny guy.
You're hilarious, Ultimate Funk. Watch the rest of this show and you will hopefully have some answers on that. Thank you so much for your continued support. And then in equity, it's Adam Gawley, one of our fellow Archons, asked, wouldn't you agree that Drukhari are the worst army in the game? There's nothing to... I don't think people should even consider them a threat at events, smiley face. Jokes aside, what do you think makes an army the best? In quotes, we've seen armies be considered the best in the past, but still have obvious counters. In those cases, are the counters just too weak to the point where even though they beat the best thematically, their actual power level isn't enough? What do we think?
It's what makes an army the best is it's generally just come down to the ability to annihilate the opposition before they can kind of react. Like if you think about over the last few years, whenever we've had truly broken armies, it's been Admech, Drukhari, all those sorts of things, Orc buggies. They all just had the ability to kill so much of the enemy or be completely unkillable, like Iron Hands, or a mix of both. Like armies that just play the mission really well, like that's not broken shit, right? It's the element of removing the entirety of your opponent's army in such a big way that they don't get to fight back. I mean, I remember going second with my Necrons into Raven Guard many moons edition, and I lost 1,200 points in turn 1.
Yeah.
And I then lost 800 points in turn 2, and I was like, It's been a fun time. And then we spoke about it afterwards, and there wasn't really anything I could do. And the game has been like that at various points, and people getting into the hobby or the game just after Eldar are kind of probably like don't realise that actually we're quite lucky to.
We're hugely, we're incredibly lucky.
Barring
it's funny. It's funny.
About the best army. We've just talked about 10. Like that's
we talked about 10, and we had to do shout outs because there were several that we didn't have in there, right?
Yeah.
So I think at this moment in time, the best armies are simply slightly ahead in terms of the range of matchups they can muscle their way through, the flex and tactical abilities they give you in the game, and perhaps a little bit in terms of their raw efficiencies and doing what they're good at and trickery. But there's not a lot in it. And historically, the best armies were simply way too overcooked in terms of their rules, their capability, the amount of stuff they had on the table, whatever it was, how durable they were, some mathematical coding error that had produced. And I know what you mean, Adam, when you're talking about their natural counters not functioning, because I think we saw that. I mean, a good example would be like Harlequins, right? GSC on paper had all the tools to whack Harlequins, but when Harlequins came out, they just had too much shit and could just go too fast and do too much nonsense. It just didn't matter. You just got bodied off the board before you could apply that. As soon as Harlequins were balanced, then the relationship of that mass volume of rubbish versus actually you have a 4-up suddenly worked, and GSC had a good game into Harlequins. But it took them to be adjusted beyond their mechanics and critical mass to get them down. So it can be a number of different things, but it's funny watching teams, veterans trying to puzzle out the meta at the moment, because the reality is that they have, for most of their history in this game, just been very good at pairing a matrix to get their 3 broken armies into the right combos and nullify the broken armies in the other team. And that was teams. And that's not actually where the game currently is, and it's fascinating.
It's a faction specialist meta, isn't it?
It's a drawy specialist meta. And you're just trying not to get 20-0'd if you can avoid it. That's a big deal. Big deal in the game right now. AT6TCG says that was toxic. Yeah, at times it has been. That's not currently where we're at. But I think, honestly, I just think being very good at an army right now is the biggest asset you can have. That is what will get you there.
I think a good point made by Disgustingly Resilient is just that lack of interactivity. If you can't, like the classic AdMech planes, just I'm just going to fly over here, I can get everywhere, boom, you're dead. Like there's no interactive.
No saves, just take them off.
Yeah, lovely to have you here, by the way, Aiden. But I think that's absolutely right, and I think there are just certain things which are just always good in 40k. If you're interested in what's always good, being able to go really fast and shoot things is great. Being able to go really fast and hit things is great. Being very, very durable and regenerating, typically great. Those are all things which are not bad places to start. But certain archetypes can just feel really difficult to deal with. I don't think 10th is anything like as non-interactive a game as 9th was, though. This is not I've picked my schema of scoring and I'm just going to do it, and I don't really care whether you're here or not.
Harlequins, baby.
Yeah. GSC as well, mate. By the end, they really, they were
Necrons. Do you remember when Necrons?
Yeah.
I'm going to play 3 turns to be on 100.
Yeah. So we're not in that place now, but certainly some armies are able to play keep away really well. Still, there's always some version of that. We had some affection from Michael Douglas earlier on, by the way. Thank you very much as well. We appreciate you. What a lovely chat been tonight. It's been really nice.
Yeah.
I'm glad to bring it to an end. It's been such a fun one. Been an absolute classic. As I say, we were just a little bit on the ropes, bit tired, bit like we've got to get ourselves up and go again. And then tons of you turn up and lift us back up and remind us why we do this. So well done, guys. Thank you.
Ash as well.
We are on our final question. It's from Hannibal in the chat, unless the other chat wants to provide, and we will, of course, answer. And they ask, what rules or abilities do you look for to make an army or unit good?
Something which can ramp up a power level to something which feels like it can. So like those combo pieces, and they're in theory the harder things to spot. So a buffing piece that can, you find 2 things like, this is quite good for its points, and then you find a buffing piece that now tips it over to the thing. So that's one thing. Uppy downy these days. Some uppy downies, that's pretty damning.
Yeah, movement shenanigans is good.
Deep strike.
CP.
CP on a unit that can survive by hiding, like your Grots or your
Yeah.
Azrael.
Combination plays is nice. You know, a 1-2 this with that is massive. But also just consistency of function is really nice. You can rely on it. You know what it's going to do. I love units that can do several different things at once. Though that's really fun, versatile. You know, journeyman, James Milner units. Get yourself some of those. Those are good to have. Warp spiders. Yeah, I mean they're bonkers.
Yeah.
And units that can operate without having a character leading them.
Or
That's
boss.
exciting.
Yeah.
Because
Or
often
plug
their
an
points aren't really that. It's the points of them plus the character.
I think lists where you have a few units that are just self-sufficient, that's really helpful, isn't it? They just go and do their thing, and you plug with the moving parts. But again, one of the nice things about this edition is you want a whole bunch of things that do radically different things in your list. It's very interesting in that way. It's not just here is 15 tanks I'm going to run you over, although it was that for about a minute for like a couple of people, but it's gone now. Mostly, I think so. Who plays 15 tanks right now? No one.
I just had flashbacks of the Black Templars list.
I think that's dead. I'm glad that's gone. That's
came third at Cardiff Carnage.
Oh no, it's happening again. Oh. Micah talks about synergies. Yeah, synergies is great. Combination plays, stuff that works well within whatever archetype you've picked. And the game's been set up really nicely, intent that you are literally building your layer of, well, here's my detachment. What does it do? Okay, now I'm going to go to my data sheets, find the things that do well with that. How do I combine it with my army rule and everything else? And you really can build out in different ways, in different detachments, which is really exciting. We've got a lovely question from Discussingly Resilient Podcast. Shout out to them. Best Death Guard podcast in the world. Asking what do you think the next 2 armies on the roadmap are? Or no, it's a wish list actually. What would you like?
Grey Knights.
Grey Knights from Chris.
Shocking.
Is there a second one, Chris, or are you just a Grey Knights?
No, it's Grey Knights and then more Grey Knights.
Grey Knights and then Knights of Drago.
Eldar's risky, right? We're a bit worried.
Yeah, I don't really. I just think this is going to be the first time ever that they've got it right. Just going to say it. I'm just going to say it.
I'm going to clip that and then we'll play
based on they've brought in people who know things and how they work now, and surely top of your list is just for the love of God, for once, don't write an Eldar book that ruins the game for 6 months. That's all you have to do, and then people will consider the edition a success. Will Eldar players? Maybe not. But I just think maybe this summer, seeing how they've treated other armies with their books, I don't think it's impossible.
I'm just going to write the time.
When they've got 6 detachments, it's going to be fine.
That's aged badly, didn't it?
I'd love to just be able to pick up and play that book from its release and feel good about myself. That's what I'd like.
I'm looking forward to the release because there'll be a refresh with it. I want plastic warp spiders.
Yeah, it'll be cool. I'd like Votan in the next couple of books. That would be great. And then outside of that, what would I like?
I'd really like Death Guard because at the moment they feel kind of stuck.
Yeah, that's true. That'd be interesting.
I know that there is ways to play them, but it does still feel like that whole they've just got the index, and
they're one of those armies where I've already got everything as well. So that's a nice one. Oh, that would just be fun. I could just play about. Finally build that 3rd Plague Burst crawler and really go to town. You know?
They're going to go roll a 2 for those.
Yeah, so that would be fun. Death Guard would be quite a fun one. And they are languishing a little bit, aren't they, really, I think. So they probably need a little bit. I'm still so curious about Chaos Demons. I'd quite like Chaos Demons just to take a load off our minds and know that they still exist.
Well, they're going to be in all the books.
I hope they still exist.
There's going to be 4 books, and they're going to be in each of the books. Done.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, Eldar Exodites as well. Elves on Dinosaurs this time. Yes, please, thank you. That'd be so good.
But if we are really wish listing, I want Dark Mechanicum.
Okay, that would be awesome. Yeah,
because I don't think we're going to get that anytime too soon, but I'd love it.
It would be very cool. Mike says, "I'm guessing you're hoping." Yeah, there is no evidence that they can write balanced Eldar rules. We can hope. But they are one of my favorite armies, and I literally only get to play them about a year every edition.
John Kevill said Codex Space Marines. I'm just like, I don't think I could handle them getting rid of this book now. I like it. It's fine.
I think they've done a great job with the Special Marines, haven't they? So I think we just probably have to accept that's how it goes this edition. I don't think we're going to see anything else too exciting. Cool. And that is us. Thank you, everyone. You've been amazing. This has been a really fun show. It's been very revitalizing. So we will see you all again next week when our plan is to discuss the results of Pin the Win Rate. We've had a guess. We've tried to predict the meta. Me, Chris, and Thierry and John locked horns last time. But who won? Who's the cleverest? We will find out next time. So we will see you all again there. Please do hit like and subscribe if you haven't. Come support us. Come get involved in everything we do. We'd love to have you. You seem like a wonderful bunch. So come play. We'll see you all again next time.